Hello, my lovely friends. Tonight, we're going to travel far from the noise, far from the lights, back to a place where gods walked among men, where sand met stone beneath the golden sun, ancient Egypt. But this isn't the story you might expect. There will be no battles, no betrayals, no sudden twists. Instead, we'll walk through the quiet halls of a palace, step into the sandals of a pharaoh, and see what it truly felt like to live at the very top of the world, alone. Before we begin, if you're enjoying this moment, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to Bedtime Historia, so we can meet again on another night when you need a gentle escape. And if you feel comfortable doing so, leave a comment telling me where you are right now, and what time it is in your part of the world. It's amazing how many of us are listening at the same time, even though we may be oceans apart. Now, take a deep breath in, and let it out slowly. Lower the brightness of your screen or turn the lights off completely. Let your eyes close, just for a little while. Let go of the day. Whatever happened earlier, whether it was good, bad, or simply tiring, allow it to drift away like grains of sand slipping through your fingers. Because now, it's time to rest. And as you listen, I'll guide you gently into a world long gone, but never forgotten. So close your eyes, and listen closely. Part 1, The First Morning in the Palace. There is a moment, just before dawn breaks over the Nile, when the world holds its breath. The sky still wears the deep blue of night, but there's a softness to it now, a quiet promise that light will soon return. In this space between dreams and waking, the palace begins to stir. Not with noise, not with urgency, but with the gentle rhythm of life unfolding as it always has, as if time itself has learned to walk softly here. Imagine the cool stone beneath your feet, smooth, worn by generations of footsteps, some hurried, most deliberate. You're standing in a room where the air still carries the scent of last night's oil lamps, faint, warm, familiar. Curtains made of fine linen sway slightly in the breeze that slips through open windows, carrying with it the first hints of morning, the crisp edge of desert air, the distant sound of birds beginning their song, the rustling of palm leaves outside. This is the home of the pharaoh. Not a fortress, not a prison, but a sanctuary carved from limestone and time. Here, every wall tells a story. Every carving, every painted figure on the ceiling, every polished column stands as a testament to centuries of devotion, power, and silence. And yet, for all its grandeur, the palace feels strangely intimate at this hour, like a secret being shared only with you. You can hear it, can't you? That hush that comes just before the day begins. It's the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, it feels full. Full of possibilities, full of memories, full of presence. It's the silence of a place that knows it's about to come alive, but isn't quite ready to rush into the light just yet. And then, slowly, the first rays begin to stretch across the horizon. They spill gently over the rooftops, slide down the columns, and kiss the edges of the statues that line the courtyard. The golden glow touches everything, the stones, the walls, even the surface of the small reflecting pool where lilies float quietly, untouched. This is the moment the sun greets the pharaoh, not with fanfare, not with ceremony, but with a quiet reverence that seems to say, another day has arrived, and you are still here. Inside, beyond the heavy doors of cedarwood inlaid with gold, the royal chambers remain dim. A single lamp burns low near the bed, just enough to see, just enough to guide. The bed itself is simple, though elegant, made of wood and ivory, covered with fine linens that have been washed in water scented with lotus and myrrh. It's not a throne, but it is a place of rest, and tonight, or perhaps many nights ago, it held the sleep of a man who ruled an entire kingdom. Now, he stirs. Slowly, as if reluctant to leave the comfort of his dreams behind. His breath is steady, calm. There is no rush here. No need to leap up, no sudden alarm. Just the slow return to consciousness, like waking from a memory rather than from sleep. Outside, the palace servants move quietly through the halls, careful not to disturb the sacred stillness of the early morning. Their footsteps are muffled against the stone floors. They carry basins of warm water, jars of perfumed oils, robes folded neatly in their arms. They know what must be done, and they do it without speaking, without hesitation. Because this is how each day begins, not with chaos, but with ritual. Not with noise, but with grace. The Pharaoh sits up slowly, letting the weight of the night slip from his shoulders. He stretches, just slightly, before the attendants step forward, silent, respectful, precise. One pours water over his hands, another offers a cloth to dry them. Another brings a small vial of oil, sweet-smelling, rich with the essence of almonds and jasmine, and gently rubs it into his skin. It's a moment so ordinary, yet so profound. This is not a man preparing for war, nor a ruler about to make decisions that will shape nations. This is a human being, beginning his day with care, with intention, with quiet dignity. He is dressed slowly, deliberately. Each layer of clothing placed upon him with reverence, white linen, finely woven, soft against his skin. A belt of gold and lapis lazuli around his waist. A collar of beads resting gently on his chest. Rings slide onto his fingers, each one a symbol, each one a reminder of who he is. And yet, despite all of this, there is something deeply personal about these moments. Something almost human. Once dressed, he steps out onto the balcony. The morning air greets him fully now, crisp, clean, carrying the scent of blooming papyrus along the riverbank. Below, the city is beginning to wake. Smoke curls from rooftops. The sounds of early market preparations drift up from the streets. But up here, above it all, the world still feels peaceful. He closes his eyes for a moment, breathing it all in. Not as a king, not as a god among men, but simply as someone who has just woken, and is taking a moment to remember that he is alive. Do you feel that? That sense of peace? Of quiet beginnings? Of a day stretching out before you, not with pressure, not with demands, but with possibility? That's what we're sharing tonight, not the drama of history, not the battles or betrayals, but the gentle rhythm of a life lived under the sun of ancient times. A life that, in many ways, was not so different from yours. Because even a pharaoh needed to wake up. Even a pharaoh needed to breathe. And even a pharaoh needed a moment, just one moment, to stand alone and feel the morning. There is a softness to this moment, the kind that only comes when the world hasn't fully woken up yet. The pharaoh stands on the balcony, his hands resting lightly on the stone railing, watching as the city below begins to stir beneath the rising sun. The golden light spills gently over rooftops and narrow streets, touching everything with warmth, as if reminding the land that it is still alive, still breathing. From up here, he can see the river winding its way through the valley like a silver ribbon caught between two worlds, the known and the unknown. Small boats are already moving along its surface, their wooden hulls cutting quiet paths through the water. Fishermen stand at the edges, nets held high before they let them fall, disappearing beneath the surface with barely a ripple. There's a rhythm to it all, slow, steady, eternal. You can almost hear it, can't you? That quiet hum of life beginning again. The clatter of pottery being moved from one hand to another. The low voices of people greeting each other across courtyards. A child laughing somewhere not too far away. It's not loud, not overwhelming, just enough to remind you that even in the most ancient places, life continues softly, without rushing. Back inside, the attendants have begun preparing for what comes next. The morning ritual is more than just a routine, it is a sacred act, a way of aligning the pharaoh with the divine forces that surround him. Each movement, each gesture, each word spoken or unspoken carries meaning. This is not vanity. This is devotion. A priest arrives quietly, dressed in flowing white robes that seem to shimmer slightly in the early light. He carries a small bronze bowl filled with incense, and as he walks, the scent of myrrh and frankincense spreads gently through the air. He bows deeply before stepping forward, placing the bowl onto a carved pedestal near the entrance of the chamber. The pharaoh turns from the balcony and walks slowly back inside, his steps measured, unhurried. He does not rush toward anything, not today, not ever. There is no urgency in the palace at this hour. Only presence. Only awareness. Only the feeling of being exactly where he is meant to be. He takes a seat on a low platform made of polished wood and stone. In front of him, a small table has been prepared, simple, elegant. A plate of figs, dates, and pomegranate seeds rests beside a shallow bowl of honeyed yogurt. Bread made from barley flour sits wrapped in linen, still warm from the morning's baking. Water mixed with a touch of wine is poured into a cup carved from alabaster. This is not a feast. It is a meal, nourishing, grounding, intentional. The pharaoh eats slowly, savoring each bite, chewing thoughtfully as though even food is something to be honored, not merely consumed. There is no hurry here. No distractions. Just the quiet companionship of the morning, and the gentle reminder that even kings must eat, must rest, must pause. Do you feel how easy it is to slip into this rhythm? How your breath seems to slow down just a little, how your thoughts begin to settle, like dust drifting lazily through a sunlit room. That's the power of this story, not because it tells you what happened, but because it lets you feel it. Not as a distant observer, but as someone who is right here, standing beside the pharaoh as he begins his day. You're not watching history unfold, you are living it, gently, peacefully, as if time itself has decided to walk beside you. As the meal ends, the attendants move once more, clearing the table with quiet efficiency. One brings a small mirror made of polished copper, offering it silently so the pharaoh may check his reflection. His face is calm, composed, not expressionless, but serene. There is no tension in his jaw, no furrow in his brow. Just the quiet confidence of someone who knows who he is, and who is not afraid of being seen. He sets the mirror aside and rises to his feet. The morning is still young, but there is much to do. And yet, none of it feels rushed. None of it feels heavy. It simply is. He steps out into the corridor, where the cool shade of the palace offers relief from the growing heat outside. The walls around him are covered in carvings, stories etched into stone, telling of gods and kings, of victories and offerings, of prayers whispered into the wind. These are not decorations. They are reminders. Reminders of where he came from. Of what he must carry. Of the legacy that stretches behind him and the future that waits ahead. The halls are quiet now, but soon they will echo with footsteps, with voices, with the movement of those who serve within these walls. But for now, there is stillness. Stillness and space. And in that space, there is something deeply personal, not just for the pharaoh, but for you, too. Because isn't there something comforting about watching someone else take their time? About seeing a ruler of an entire kingdom allow himself the luxury of slowness, of peace, of presence. We often forget that even the most powerful among us need moments like this. Moments to breathe. Moments to remember that they are human. And tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps this story reminds you of your own humanity, too. Because you don't have to be a pharaoh to deserve peace. You don't have to wear gold or live in a palace to deserve a morning that belongs to you alone. So as we continue walking through this day together, let yourself sink deeper into this world. Let yourself imagine the coolness of the stone floors beneath your bare feet, the scent of incense lingering in the air, the warmth of the sun slipping through open windows. Part 2, Rituals and the Divine Connection. The morning is still young, but already the palace hums with quiet purpose. The pharaoh has eaten, dressed, and now, as the sun climbs higher into the sky, he moves toward the inner sanctum, not a throne room, not a place for politics or people, but a space reserved for something far older, far deeper. This is where the world of men meets the realm of gods. You can feel it, can't you? That subtle shift in energy, like the air itself, becomes heavier, more sacred, as if time slows down just enough to allow for reverence. There are no loud voices here, no hurried footsteps. Only silence, broken only by the occasional flicker of an oil lamp or the soft rustle of robes as priests move silently through the corridors. He walks slowly, his bare feet pressing gently against the cool stone floor, each step measured, deliberate. Around him, attendants carry small vessels filled with water from the Nile, jars of incense, and bowls of crushed lotus petals mixed with honey and myrrh. These are not mere objects, they are offerings, symbols of devotion, reminders that even a king must bow before forces greater than himself. As he approaches the temple within the palace grounds, the light changes. It filters through narrow windows carved into the thick stone walls, casting long shadows across the ground. The carvings on the walls seem almost alive in this light, gods with human bodies and animal heads, their expressions calm yet unyielding. They watch. They listen. And though they do not speak, their presence is undeniable. This is not a place of fear. It is not meant to intimidate. It is a sanctuary, a bridge between the mortal and the divine, a space where power does not come from armies or gold, but from connection, from humility, from understanding one's place in the vast order of things. The pharaoh steps forward and kneels before the central altar, where a statue of Ammonius Ra stands tall, wrapped in gold and lapis lazuli. His hands rest lightly on his thighs, his back straight, his breath steady. He closes his eyes, and for a moment, everything is still. There is no rush here. No need to prove anything. Just the simple act of being present, fully, completely, before something larger than oneself. Behind him, the priests begin their chants, low and rhythmic, like the sound of waves gently rolling onto the shore. Their voices rise and fall, never too loud, never too sharp, always flowing like the river that nourishes the land. The scent of burning incense fills the air, sweet, earthy, grounding, wrapping around the space like a warm embrace. And then, the offering begins. One priest steps forward with a bowl of water drawn from the Nile at dawn, believed to carry the purity of creation itself. Another follows with a tray of fruits, figs, dates, pomegranates, all harvested under the full moon, chosen not only for their sweetness but for their symbolism. A third holds a vial of oil infused with rose petals and frankincense, a gift not just to the gods, but to the spirit of the ruler himself. Each item is placed carefully upon the altar, accompanied by whispered prayers in a language older than memory. These words are not meant to be understood by everyone. They are meant to be felt, to resonate deep within the soul, to remind the listener that some truths cannot be translated, only experienced. The Pharaoh remained still throughout, his eyes closed, his expression serene. He is not asking for favors. He is not demanding victories. He is simply giving thanks for life, for breath, for the chance to serve, to lead, to exist beneath the same sky as the gods themselves. Do you feel how peaceful this moment is? How easy it is to let your thoughts drift away, carried on the rhythm of these ancient sounds. You don't have to understand every word to feel its meaning. You don't have to believe in these gods to sense the weight of this tradition, the depth of this devotion. Because rituals like these are not just about faith, they are about grounding. About remembering who you are, where you come from, and what matters most. Even in the modern world, we have our own rituals: morning coffee, evening tea, the way we prepare for sleep, the way we say good night. They may look different, but they serve the same purpose: to bring us back to ourselves, to remind us that we are part of something bigger. Tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps you, too, can take a moment, just a small one, to breathe deeply, to let go of whatever tension still clings to your body, and to imagine yourself standing beside the Pharaoh, sharing in this quiet, sacred moment. Because you belong here. In this story. In this piece. And so, as the ritual continues, as the last notes of the chant fade into silence, the Pharaoh opens his eyes once more. The ceremony is not over, but the foundation has been laid, a connection made, a bond renewed. And now, he rises, ready to walk the next part of his day, carrying with him the quiet strength that comes from knowing he is not alone. Even in the solitude of leadership, even in the quiet of early morning, he is held, by tradition, by belief, by the gentle presence of something eternal. As the last echoes of the chant fade into silence, the Pharaoh remains standing before the altar, his hands still resting lightly at his sides. The air around him feels different now, not heavier, not lighter, but changed in a way that is difficult to name. It is as if something unseen has shifted, like the turning of a page in a book so old that its edges are worn smooth by time. The priests begin their quiet movements once more, this time carrying small clay vessels filled with sacred oils. Each one is labeled carefully with hieroglyphs, each symbol a whisper from the past, telling of the plant it came from, the purpose it serves, the god it honors. One priest steps forward and dips his fingers gently into a jar containing oil pressed from the seeds of the moringa tree, known for its strength and purity. He lifts his hand and makes a small mark upon the Pharaoh's forehead, not a crown, not a seal of power, but a sign of blessing. It is a gesture both simple and profound. Not meant for display, not meant for witnesses, but for the man himself, a reminder that even he, who rules over thousands, must also be reminded of his own humanity, his own fragility, his own need for care. You can almost feel it, can't you? That light touch upon the skin, warm from the oil, grounding in its gentleness. There is no rush here, no demand for attention or action. Just the slow, deliberate movement of hands that know exactly what they are doing, guided not only by tradition but by deep respect. Behind him, the temple begins to fill with soft light. The sun has risen fully now, casting long shadows across the stone floor. Dust particles float lazily through the air, catching glimmers of gold as they drift between beams of sunlight. Outside, the city continues to awaken, but in here, within these sacred walls, time moves differently. It stretches, slows, breathes. The Pharaoh closes his eyes again, allowing the moment to settle inside him. He does not speak. He does not bow. He simply stands, present, aware, open. And in that stillness, there is something deeply familiar, not just to him, but to you, too. Because haven't we all had moments like this? Moments when the world outside fades away, and all that remains is the quiet space within us? When we are not required to perform, not expected to explain ourselves, not asked to do anything except simply be. That is what this ritual offers, not salvation, not enlightenment, but presence. A chance to remember that even in leadership, even in responsibility, there is room for peace. One of the priests steps forward again, holding a small bronze bowl filled with crushed lotus petals mixed with honey and milk. The scent rises gently into the air, sweet, floral, calming. He kneels beside the Pharaoh and places the bowl onto a low table carved from cedarwood. Another priest follows with a small linen cloth soaked in cool water, offering it silently for the Pharaoh to wipe his face. He takes it slowly, pressing it lightly against his cheeks, letting the coolness sink into his skin. The warmth of the morning sun, the lingering heat of the incense, the gentle pressure of the oil on his forehead, all of it blends together into a single, soothing experience. There is no hurry. No distraction. No demand for anything more than this. And yet, this is not indulgence. This is not luxury for luxury's sake. This is preparation. Because what comes next will require clarity, focus, and strength, not of the body, but of the mind and spirit. The Pharaoh lowers the cloth and exhales softly. His breath is steady, calm. He opens his eyes and turns slightly, signaling that the ritual is nearing its end. The priests bow their heads in silent acknowledgement, then begin to move quietly once more, gathering the remaining items, extinguishing lamps that have burned low, folding linens that were used during the ceremony. Outside, the morning grows warmer, and the palace begins to wake more fully. Servants return to their duties, footsteps echoing softly through the corridors. Somewhere nearby, a bird calls out, its song carried gently on the breeze. But in here, within the heart of the temple, the energy remains unchanged, peaceful, grounded, sacred. The Pharaoh steps back from the altar, his gaze lingering for just a moment longer on the statue of Amunias-Ra. Then, with a quiet nod, he turns and walks toward the entrance, stepping out into the light beyond. The ritual is complete. And yet, its effects linger, not just in the scents that remain in the air, not just in the faint traces of oil on his skin, but in the way he carries himself now. There is a softness to his posture, a steadiness in his steps, a quiet confidence that does not come from power alone, but from having taken the time to connect with the divine, with himself, with the rhythm of the day unfolding before him. Do you feel that, too? That sense of settling? Of being gently held by this story, by this world, by this moment? Because that is what this journey is about, not spectacle, not drama, not grand battles or sweeping declarations. It is about small, meaningful moments. About rituals that bring peace. About the quiet understanding that even those who lead must also rest, must also pause, must also listen. And tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps you, too, can take something from this, not just knowledge of history, but a feeling, a memory, a sense of calm that stays with you even after the story ends. So as we continue walking through this day together, let yourself sink deeper into this world. Let yourself imagine the weight of the oil on your skin, the coolness of the cloth against your face, the soft hum of chants fading into silence. Let yourself remember that you, too, deserve peace. just like the Pharaoh. Just like anyone who dares to breathe beneath the same sky. Part 3, A Day in the Life of a Pharaoh. The morning has passed quietly into afternoon, and the golden light that once bathed the palace now stretches long across the stone floors, casting soft shadows beneath columns and along the walls carved with ancient stories. The air has warmed slightly, carrying with it the scent of blooming jasmine from the garden just beyond the courtyard. After the sacred stillness of the temple, the Pharaoh now moves through the halls of governance, not with urgency, but with purpose. His steps are unhurried, his presence calm, as if he carries within him the echoes of the ritual he has just completed. There is no rush here, no demand for haste. Just the steady rhythm of a day unfolding as it always has. You can almost feel the change in atmosphere, from the quiet holiness of the inner sanctum to the gentle hum of daily life within the palace. Servants move silently through the corridors, their feet barely making a sound against the cool stone. Windows left open allow the breeze to pass freely, carrying with it the occasional chirp of birds or the distant laughter of children playing near the riverbank. This is where the kingdom is managed, not in grand declarations or dramatic confrontations, but in small, deliberate actions. In quiet conversations. And careful decisions made with the weight of responsibility resting gently on his shoulders. He enters a chamber lined with low tables carved from cedarwood, each one covered with scrolls written in neat hieroglyphs. Scribes sit cross-legged nearby, waiting patiently with reed pens dipped in ink made from crushed minerals and water. They do not speak unless spoken to. They do not move unnecessarily. They simply wait, respectful, attentive, present. The Pharaoh takes a seat on a cushion woven from fine linen, its edges embroidered with patterns resembling the ripples of the Nile. Before him, a servant places a tray bearing a bowl of fresh dates soaked in honey, a piece of flatbread still warm from the oven, and a cup filled with water mixed with a touch of pomegranate juice. It is not a feast, nor is it extravagant, only nourishment, offered with care. He eats slowly, deliberately, savoring each bite as though reminding himself that even the most powerful among us must pause to feed the body before tending to the needs of the people. There is no distraction here, no noise, no pressure. Just the quiet companionship of food and thought. Do you feel how easy it is to slip into this rhythm? How your breath seems to slow, how your thoughts begin to settle, like leaves drifting down onto still water. That's the beauty of this story, not because it tells of battles won or empires built, but because it shows the human side of history. The moments between the great events. The spaces where leaders breathe, eat, listen, and reflect. As he finishes his meal, a scribe steps forward and unrolls a scroll, revealing a detailed report on the harvest from the fields near Memphis. He reads aloud in a soft voice, steady, clear, unhurried, describing the abundance of grain stored in the granaries, the condition of the irrigation canals, and the number of laborers needed for the next planting season. The Pharaoh listens carefully, nodding occasionally, asking questions when necessary. But there is no sharpness in his tone, no impatience in his manner. He speaks with kindness, with curiosity, with the understanding that leadership is not about command alone, but also about listening, truly listening, to those who work beside you. It's a rare kind of power, isn't it? One that does not seek to dominate, but to understand. One that recognizes that every decision, no matter how small, affects lives beyond the palace walls. After the report is finished, another scribe presents a message sent from the southern border, news of a festival being prepared in honor of Hathor, goddess of love, music, and joy. The Pharaoh smiles faintly at this, his eyes briefly lighting up as if remembering a time when he, too, danced beneath torchlight, surrounded by music and laughter. There is something deeply personal in that moment, not just for him, but for you, too. Because haven't we all had memories like that? Small, fleeting glimpses of happiness tucked away in the corners of our minds, ready to surface when the world feels quiet enough to let them in? The scribes return to their writing, and the Pharaoh leans back slightly, allowing himself a moment to rest. The sun outside has shifted, and now its warmth spills gently through the windows, wrapping around the room like a familiar blanket. A light breeze stirs the hanging linens, bringing with it the scent of lotus flowers growing in the nearby pond. It's peaceful here. Not empty, not silent in the way that loneliness feels, but full of presence, of meaning, of the simple act of existing in a space that honors both duty and stillness. And then, without fanfare, he rises to his feet. The time for reflection has passed, and there are more tasks to attend to. But again, there is no rush. No tension. Just movement, smooth, fluid, grounded. He walks out into the courtyard, where a shaded walkway leads toward the gardens. The path is lined with rows of papyrus plants, their tall green stalks swaying gently in the breeze. Nearby, a small pool reflects the sky above, its surface rippling slightly as a fish breaks the water's edge. There are few places in the palace as serene as this one. Here, away from the weight of ceremony and rule, the Pharaoh can walk slowly, take deep breaths, and allow his mind to wander without judgment. Do you imagine yourself walking beside him? Feeling the cool shade of the trees above, hearing the soft rustle of palm fronds in the wind, watching the sunlight dance across the surface of the water? Because tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps this journey offers you more than just history, perhaps it offers you peace. So as we continue walking together through this day, let yourself sink deeper into this world. Let yourself imagine the warmth of the sun on your skin, the gentle sway of the palm trees overhead, the soft hush of the breeze as it moves through the courtyard. Let yourself remember that even in the midst of responsibility, there is room for stillness. Just like the Pharaoh. Just like you. The garden stretches out before him like a quiet secret, a space where time slows down and the weight of rule feels lighter. If only for a little while. Beneath the shade of tall sycamore fig trees, he walks slowly, his bare feet pressing gently against the cool stone path. The scent of blooming lotus rises from the nearby pond, mingling with the faint aroma of sun-warmed earth and crushed mint leaves scattered along the edges of the walkway. This is not a place for meetings or decisions, but for reflection. For stillness. For simply being. And as you listen to this story unfold, perhaps you, too, can feel that same sense of ease settling over you, like a soft blanket pulled over tired shoulders, like the hush that follows a deep breath after a long day. He pauses beside a small bench made of limestone, its surface worn smooth by years of use. He sits down without hesitation, allowing himself to rest here, away from the formalities of the palace, away from the expectations of leadership. There is no one watching now, no eyes upon him except those of the birds perched silently in the branches above. A breeze moves through the garden, carrying with it the gentle rustle of palm fronds and the distant hum of life beyond these walls. Somewhere outside, children laugh, their voices rising and falling like music carried on the wind. A donkey brays softly near the stables, and the occasional clink of metal tells of workers tending to their daily tasks. But here, within this quiet space, everything feels calm. As though the world has decided to slow down just enough to let him breathe. He closes his eyes and leans back slightly, letting the warmth of the afternoon sun settle into his skin. His breathing deepens, becomes slower, more even. Not asleep, not lost in thought, just present. Just resting. And isn't there something comforting about that? About seeing someone in power allow themselves the simple luxury of peace. Because we often forget that leaders are people too, that they, too, need moments like this. Moments to sit quietly beneath a tree, to watch clouds drift across the sky, to let their minds wander without purpose or pressure. You may find yourself doing the same tonight, lying there, listening, feeling your own thoughts begin to drift, your body grow heavier, your breaths longer. And that's okay. That's exactly what this story is meant to do, not to keep you wide awake, but to guide you gently toward sleep, toward stillness, toward the kind of peace that doesn't shout, but whispers. After a few moments, he opens his eyes again and turns his gaze toward the water. The pond is shallow, lined with smooth stones and filled with floating lilies that sway gently with the current. Fish move lazily beneath the surface, their scales catching glimmers of light as they pass. It's peaceful here. Simple. Beautiful in the way that only small things can be. He watches them for a while, not thinking, not planning, not worrying, just observing. And in that observation, there is something sacred. Something deeply human. Behind him, the sound of footsteps grows closer, slow, deliberate, respectful. One of his attendants approaches, holding a small clay jar filled with oil infused with rose petals and myrrh. Without a word, the man kneels beside the bench and offers the jar with both hands, bowing his head slightly as he does so. The pharaoh takes it with a quiet nod of thanks and removes the lid, allowing the scent to rise gently into the air. It's warm, sweet, grounding, the kind of fragrance that seems to wrap around the senses like a familiar memory. He dips 2 fingers into the oil and rubs it gently onto his arms, letting the coolness of the morning fade beneath the growing heat of the afternoon. There is no rush here. No urgency. Just the slow, careful movement of hands that know how to care, not just for others, but for oneself. Do you remember what it feels like to take care of yourself like this? To take a moment just for you, without guilt, without distraction, without expectation. Tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps this story reminds you that you, too, deserve that. That even when the world asks more of you than you feel ready to give, there is always room for stillness. Always space for peace. And so, as he finishes rubbing the oil into his skin, he replaces the lid on the jar and sets it aside. Then, with a slow, graceful movement, he rises to his feet and begins walking once more, following the winding path that leads toward another part of the palace, not the throne room, not the halls of governance, but a smaller, quieter space where he will meet with those who serve him directly. It is not a council meeting. Not a debate. Not a confrontation. It is a gathering, small, intimate, unhurried. A group of trusted advisors, scribes, and servants wait patiently beneath a shaded canopy woven from reeds and linen. They sit cross-legged on woven mats, their expressions calm, their presence steady. As he approaches, they bow their heads respectfully, then make space for him to sit among them. A servant brings forward a low table, placing upon it a tray of fresh fruits, dates, figs, slices of pomegranate, and a pitcher of cool water mixed with a touch of honey. Another brings a small bowl filled with crushed almonds and raisins, a snack offered not for indulgence, but for energy. They speak in hushed tones, exchanging information in a way that feels natural, unforced. Reports on trade routes, updates on temple construction, news of festivals to come, all shared without drama, without tension, without urgency. Each voice blends into the next, creating a rhythm that feels almost like music. The pharaoh listens, nods, occasionally adds a comment or asks a question. But there is no sharpness in his tone, no impatience in his manner. He speaks with kindness, with curiosity, with the understanding that leadership is not about command alone, but also about connection. And as you listen to their conversation, perhaps you, too, can feel the comfort of being heard, of being part of something larger, yet deeply personal. The meeting continues for some time, but eventually it comes to a close. The men rise slowly, bowing once more before stepping back into the shadows of the palace. The servant clears the tray, and the courtyard returns to its quiet state, as though nothing had happened at all. But something has happened. Not grand, not dramatic, just meaningful. Just human. The pharaoh stands and begins walking again, his steps light, his expression calm. The sun is beginning to shift toward the west now, casting long shadows across the courtyard. The day is still unfolding, but already, the rhythm of evening is beginning to take shape. And as you continue to listen, perhaps you, too, can feel the rhythm of your own day slowing down, your thoughts becoming softer, your body sinking deeper into your bed, your breaths growing longer and slower. Because that is what this story is meant to do, not to excite, not to entertain, but to soothe. To guide you gently toward sleep, toward peace, toward the quiet spaces within yourself. Part 4, Private Moments of the Pharaoh. The sun has begun its slow descent, casting long shadows across the palace grounds and painting the sky in soft hues of gold and lavender. The air is cooler now, carrying with it the gentle scent of blooming evening jasmine and the faint traces of incense still lingering from earlier rituals. The world outside hums softly, a distant melody of life continuing beyond the palace walls, but within these stone corridors, something quieter begins to settle. The day's duties have come to a close. The meetings are over, the reports read, the decisions made. And now, as the last light of day slips through open windows, the pharaoh steps away from the public eye and into a space that belongs only to him, not as a ruler, not as a god among men, but simply as a man who needs to rest his mind, quiet his thoughts, and return to himself. You can feel it, can't you? That shift in energy, like the breath you take just before closing your eyes at night, when everything around you feels softer, slower, more peaceful. It's not silence exactly, because even in stillness there is sound, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, the distant call of birds returning to their nests, the soft creak of wooden beams settling into place. He walks slowly through a narrow corridor lined with carved reliefs depicting scenes of daily life, farmers tending to their fields, mothers holding their children, priests offering prayers beneath the stars. These are not grand moments of conquest or ceremony, but small, meaningful glimpses of ordinary existence. And yet, they seem to carry weight here, as if reminding him that even in his solitude, he is connected to all of it. His footsteps are barely audible against the cool stone floor. There is no rush now, no need to move quickly or speak loudly. He allows himself the luxury of slowness, of presence, of simply being. At the end of the corridor, he reaches a small chamber tucked away from the main halls, a private retreat, known only to a few. The room is modest compared to the grandeur of the throne hall, but it holds a quiet beauty. A low bed rests against one wall, covered in fine linen dyed in soft shades of blue and green. Curtains made of sheer fabric sway gently in the evening breeze, allowing moonlight to spill inside in soft waves. A small oil lamp burns on a nearby table, casting a warm glow that dances along the painted walls. The scent of myrrh and sandalwood fills the air, carried by a thin ribbon of smoke rising from a small brazier in the corner. Everything here is intentional, designed not for display, but for comfort, for peace, for the kind of stillness that allows the soul to breathe. He moves toward the bed and sits down slowly, letting out a soft exhale as his body relaxes into the familiar space. His hands rest lightly on his lap, fingers slightly curled, palms open. Not tense. Not guarded. Just present. Do you know what it feels like to be truly alone, yet not lonely? To sit in silence without feeling the need to fill it with noise? This is that moment, not empty, not sad, but full of something quiet and sacred. Outside, the city begins to settle into the rhythm of night. The sounds of daily life grow softer, the clatter of pottery, the murmur of voices, the occasional laughter of children playing near the riverbank. Somewhere, a flute plays a gentle tune, notes floating through the air like whispers carried on the wind. And here, within these walls, the Pharaoh lets go of the day. He leans back slightly, resting his head against a cushion embroidered with patterns resembling flowing water. His breathing deepens, slows, becomes part of the rhythm of the room itself. His eyes remain open for a while, watching the play of light and shadow across the ceiling, following the movement of the curtain as it sways gently in the breeze. There is no pressure here. No demands. No expectations. Only this, the quiet companionship of his own thoughts, the soft hush of the evening, the warmth of memory drifting through his mind like a dream half-remembered. Because tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps you, too, can find yourself in this moment, not as a stranger to history, but as someone who understands what it means to seek peace, to crave stillness, to want nothing more than to rest. And so, as we continue walking together through this day, let yourself sink deeper into this world. Let yourself imagine the coolness of the stone floor beneath bare feet, the soft flicker of lamplight dancing across the walls, the gentle pull of sleep beginning to settle over your body. Let yourself remember that even those who lead must also rest. Just like the Pharaoh. Just like you. He closes his eyes for a moment, not to sleep, not yet, but to simply be. And in that stillness, memories begin to surface. He remembers the first time he stood upon the balcony at this hour, years ago, when the weight of rule was new and unfamiliar. He remembers how the city looked then, smaller somehow, quieter, less demanding. He remembers how the stars seemed brighter, how the moon felt closer, how the night stretched out before him like an endless possibility. Now, years later, the view is the same, but the feeling is different. Not heavier, not sadder, but deeper. More layered. More complex. Because leadership does not change the stars above, but it changes the way you see them. He opens his eyes again and turns his gaze toward the window. The moon is rising now, pale and full, casting silver light onto the rooftops below. In its glow, the palace seems almost timeless, as though it has always existed, and always will. And in this moment, he is not thinking about politics or power. He is not planning for tomorrow's meetings or reviewing today's decisions. He is simply remembering childhood laughter, remembering the scent of bread baking in the morning, remembering a time when he did not have to carry the weight of an entire kingdom on his shoulders. There is something deeply human in that, isn't there? Because haven't we all had moments like this? Moments when the world around us fades away, and all that remains is the quiet space within us? When we are not required to perform, not expected to explain ourselves, not asked to do anything except simply be. That is what this story offers, not spectacle, not drama, not grand battles or sweeping declarations. It is about small, meaningful moments. About the spaces between the great events. about the quiet understanding that even those who lead must also rest, must also pause, must also listen. The moonlight spills gently through the open window, casting soft silver patterns across the stone floor. The air inside the chamber is still now, carrying only the faintest traces of incense and the quiet hum of the night beyond these walls. It's the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, it feels full. Full of presence, of memory, of the slow unfolding of thoughts that rarely have space to surface in the daylight hours. He remained seated on the edge of his bed, eyes half closed, fingers resting lightly on his lap. Not asleep, not quite awake, somewhere in between, where time stretches and thoughts drift like clouds over a calm sea. There is no need to move, no need to speak, no need to be anything other than what he is in this moment, a man, alone, watching the night unfold around him. You can almost feel it, can't you? That gentle pull of stillness, that sense of being held by something unseen but deeply familiar. Like the hush before sleep, like the moment just before your body lets go and your mind begins to float. Outside, the city sleeps quietly beneath the stars. A few distant voices murmur in the cool evening air, a late-night conversation between neighbors, perhaps, or a mother singing softly to her child. Somewhere far away, a dog barks once, then falls silent again. And above it all, the sky stretches wide and endless, filled with constellations that have watched over this land for thousands of years. And here, within these walls, the Pharaoh allows himself to simply be. His gaze drifts toward a small wooden chest resting near the foot of the bed. It's plain, unadorned, without gold or jewels, different from the treasures displayed in the throne hall, different from the golden masks and ceremonial weapons kept in the palace vaults. This box holds something else entirely. Something personal. Something private. Without standing, he reaches out and opens it slowly. Inside, nestled among folds of soft linen, are a few simple objects, a small carved figurine of a child, its edges worn smooth from years of touch, a piece of fabric dyed in soft red and blue, once wrapped around his shoulders during childhood ceremonies, a tiny vial of oil that still carries the scent of someone long gone. These are not relics of war or conquest. They are memories. Pieces of a life that existed before power, before responsibility, before the weight of rule settled upon his shoulders. He lifts the figurine carefully, turning it over in his hands as though tracing the lines of a forgotten dream. It was given to him by his mother, many years ago, a gift meant to bring protection, to remind him that even the most powerful must also be cared for. He remembers how she used to sit beside him at night, telling stories under the light of the oil lamp, her voice low and steady, her presence warm and grounding. Do you remember moments like that too? Small, quiet moments tucked away in the corners of your mind, waiting for the right time to return? Because tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps this story reminds you of your own memories, of bedtime stories whispered into the dark, of hands that once held yours, of moments when you were seen, truly seen, without expectation or demand. The Pharaoh closes his eyes for a moment, letting the memory settle inside him. Then, gently, he places the figurine back into the chest and runs his fingers lightly over the fabric beside it. It's faded now, the colors softened by time, but he can still remember the day he wore it, not for ceremony, not for display, but for a festival in the village where he once played as a child. There had been music then, flutes and drums, laughter rising into the night sky. Children ran through the streets with torches in their hands, their shadows dancing against the stone walls. His father had stood nearby, watching with quiet pride, while his mother smiled beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. That night had felt different. Not because of anything grand, but because it had been full of joy, of connection, of belonging. And now, years later, sitting in the quiet of his private chamber, surrounded by the echoes of that past, he allows himself to feel it again, not with sadness, not with longing, but with gratitude. Because even a pharaoh needs to remember who he was before he became who he is. Even a ruler must sometimes return to the moments that made him human. He exhales slowly, placing the lid back on the chest and shifting slightly so that he can lean more comfortably against the cushions behind him. The room feels warmer now, wrapped in the soft glow of lamplight and memory. The breeze outside has grown gentler, carrying with it the distant sound of a flute playing a slow, soothing melody. He listens to it for a while, letting the notes wrap around him like a lullaby carried on the wind. Not loud, not demanding attention, but present, like the steady rhythm of breath, like the quiet pulse of life continuing beneath the surface of everything. His eyelids grow heavier. Not forced, not rushed, just naturally drawn downward by the weight of peace. And yet, he does not close them completely. Not yet. Instead, he watches as the flame in the oil lamp flickers gently, casting soft shadows along the painted walls. The figures there seem almost alive in this light, gods and goddesses frozen in eternal motion, their expressions calm, their presence watchful. He smiles faintly at them, not with reverence, not with fear, but with something quieter. Recognition. Acceptance. Perhaps even friendship. Because tonight, in this space, he is not bowing before them. He is simply sharing the moment with them. And isn't that what makes this place sacred? Not because of gold or offerings, not because of rituals or prayers, but because of the way it holds him, gently, patiently, without judgment. It's the same kind of holding that this story offers to you. Because tonight, as you listen, perhaps you, too, can allow yourself to rest, not just your body, but your mind. Perhaps you, too, can let go of the weight you carry, if only for a little while. Perhaps you, too, can find comfort in the quiet spaces of your own heart. Part 5, Encounters with the People. The morning light spills gently over the rooftops of the city, casting long shadows across narrow streets and quiet courtyards. The sun is still low in the sky, its warmth soft and unhurried, wrapping around the land like a familiar blanket. A breeze moves through the air, carrying with it the scent of fresh bread baking in clay ovens, the distant sound of water splashing from wooden buckets into clay jars, and the soft hum of voices beginning to rise with the day. Today is different, not marked by ceremony or battle, not written in scrolls for future generations to remember, but significant all the same. Because today, the Pharaoh will walk among his people. Not as a ruler seated upon a golden throne, not as a god whose name is carved into stone for eternity, but simply as a man stepping out from behind palace walls to see the world that breathes beneath his rule. You can almost feel the shift in energy, not dramatic, not urgent, but deeply meaningful. It's the kind of change that happens quietly, like the turning of a page in a story you didn't realize was important until you read it again. He walks slowly through the courtyard, dressed not in ceremonial robes woven with gold thread, but in simple linen, dyed in soft shades of beige and blue. His sandals are worn, comfortable, made for walking long distances without drawing attention. There are no guards standing at his side, no attendants following closely behind, only a few trusted companions who know when to remain silent, when to step back, when to let him simply be. As he passes through the gates of the palace, the city opens up before him, not grand, not overwhelming, but alive in ways that cannot be captured in painted walls or carved reliefs. Here, life unfolds not in silence or ceremony, but in movement, and laughter, and the steady rhythm of hands shaping clay, feet pressing against warm earth, voices calling out greetings across open spaces. Children run ahead of their mothers, chasing each other between stalls set up along the road. A woman balances a large jar of water on her head, moving with effortless grace, her steps sure and practiced. Nearby, an elderly man sits beneath the shade of a fig tree, slowly grinding grain with a stone pestle, his movements steady, his face calm. And here, walking quietly among them, is the Pharaoh. No one recognizes him at first. Not because he hides his presence, but because he chooses not to announce it. He does not wear the symbols of power today, does not demand attention or kneels from those who pass by. He simply watches, listens, breathes. Do you feel how peaceful this moment is? How easy it is to slip into the rhythm of this place, where time stretches and slows, where every action feels grounded in something deeper than just routine. Because tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps this journey reminds you of your own moments spent walking through familiar streets, watching life unfold around you, not as someone separate from it, but as part of it. He pauses near a small market where vendors begin setting up their wares, baskets filled with ripe dates, figs, and pomegranates, jars of honey and oil lined neatly along wooden tables, pieces of cloth dyed in rich colors, folded carefully beside stacks of pottery. A young boy runs past, holding a piece of flatbread in his hand, laughing as his friend chases after him. An old woman sits nearby, weaving reeds into baskets with fingers that have done this work for decades. Her eyes lift briefly as she notices the man standing nearby, watching quietly. She offers a small smile, not one of recognition, not one of reverence, but of kindness, of welcome. And he returns it, gently, without hesitation. It's a small moment, barely noticeable in the larger flow of the day. But sometimes, it's the small moments that carry the most meaning. Because haven't we all had times like this? Moments when we stepped away from our roles, our responsibilities, our expectations, if only for a little while, and allowed ourselves to simply exist among others. To watch without judgment, to listen without interruption, to feel connected without needing to speak. That is what this story offers, not spectacle, not drama, not grand declarations or sweeping battles. It is about connection, about humanity, about the quiet understanding that even those who lead must also remember what it means to belong. And so, as we continue walking together through this day, let yourself sink deeper into this world. Let yourself imagine the warmth of the morning sun, the soft hush of the marketplace, the gentle pull of peace settling over your body. Let yourself remember that even in leadership, there is room for stillness. Just like the Pharaoh. Just like you. He moves forward slowly, allowing himself to take in everything around him, the scent of freshly baked bread rising from a nearby oven, the soft clatter of pots being moved from one shelf to another, the occasional burst of laughter from a group of women gathered near a well. There is no rush here. No pressure. Just the steady rhythm of life unfolding as it always has. Nearby, a man stands beside a cart filled with clay pots, arranging them carefully before customers arrive. He glances up as the Pharaoh approaches and offers a nod of greeting, not formal, not exaggerated, just a simple acknowledgement of another person passing by. The Pharaoh stops and looks at the pots, running his fingers lightly over the smooth surface of one. They are simple, practical, yet beautiful in their craftsmanship. Each one holds stories of meals shared, of water drawn from wells, of oil burned in lamps during long nights. He asks a question, not as a ruler, not as someone demanding answers, but as a curious traveler seeking understanding. The man responds with ease, explaining how each pot is shaped by hand, how they are fired in clay kilns under the open sky, how some are decorated with patterns passed down from generations before. Their conversation is quiet, unhurried. No need to impress, no need to prove anything. Just two men sharing a moment beneath the morning sun. And as they talk, something shifts, not dramatically, not loudly, but subtly. The Pharaoh feels it, the way his body relaxes, the way his thoughts settle, the way the weight of rule feels lighter, if only for a little while. Because this is what grounding feels like, not power, not control, but connection. The simple act of remembering that you are part of something larger, something quieter, something more human. He thanks the man, nods once more, and continues walking. Behind him, the city remains, alive, breathing, continuing without pause. Ahead, the path winds toward the riverbank, where fishermen prepare their nets and children gather to watch the boats drift gently across the water. And as the sun climbs higher into the sky, the Pharaoh walks on, feeling not above the people, but among them. Just like the Pharaoh. Just like you. The path leads him gently toward the riverbank, where the morning light dances across the surface of the Nile like scattered pieces of gold. The water moves slowly, almost lazily, reflecting the sky above and the world beside it. Boats made of papyrus and would float quietly near the shore, their wooden hulls worn smooth by years of use. Fishermen stand at the edges, casting their nets with practiced ease, watching as the fabric spreads wide before sinking silently beneath the surface. There is a rhythm to this place, slow, steady, eternal. Not rushed, not loud, but full of life in its own quiet way. It's the kind of place that makes you want to sit down, close your eyes for a moment, and simply listen. He walks along the edge of the water, his steps unhurried, his presence unnoticed by most. A few children glance up from where they play near the shore, tossing small stones into the river and watching the ripples spread outward. One of them pauses mid-throw, tilting her head slightly as she studies the man walking past. But there is no recognition in her eyes, only curiosity, only wonder. A breeze moves through the air, carrying with it the scent of wet earth and blooming lotus flowers. The Pharaoh inhales deeply, letting the fragrance settle inside him. It reminds him of something distant yet familiar, of childhood days spent playing near the river, of afternoons when the world felt endless and time moved differently than it does now. He finds a smooth stone and sits down, resting his hands lightly on his knees. Around him, life continues without pause, fishermen pulling their nets back onto the shore, women washing clothes in the shallows, men repairing boats with careful hands. There is no ceremony here, no grandeur, no throne, just the simple act of being present in a place that has existed long before him and will continue long after he is gone. Do you feel how peaceful this moment is? How easy it is to let your thoughts drift away, carried on the gentle hush of the water, the soft murmur of voices around you. Because tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps this story reminds you of your own moments spent near water, whether it was a lake, a river, or even just a quiet bath beneath dimmed lights. Moments when the world felt still enough to let you breathe. Nearby, an elderly woman sits on a woven mat, spreading out freshly washed linen to dry in the morning sun. Her fingers move slowly but surely, smoothing out each fold with care. She looks up briefly as the Pharaoh passes, then offers a small nod, not one of formality, not one of submission, but of quiet acknowledgement. He returns the gesture, then asks, softly, if he may sit beside her for a while. She smiles slightly and gestures to the space beside her, making room without hesitation. He lowers himself onto the mat, feeling the warmth of the sun-warmed cloth beneath him. For a moment, neither speaks. There is no need to fill the silence with words. Sometimes, just sitting together is enough. Then, gently, she begins to speak, not about politics, not about power, but about the fabric in her hands. About how it was woven by her daughter, dyed using crushed berries and minerals, softened with oils pressed from seeds gathered during the last harvest. She talks of the patterns stitched along the edges, passed down through generations, each symbol telling a story of love, protection, and memory. He listens carefully, his gaze following the movement of her hands as she folds another piece of cloth and places it beside the others. There is something deeply grounding in this, not because of what is said, but because of the way it is said. Slowly. Calmly. With care. And in that slowness, he feels something shift within him. Not tension leaving his body, though that happens too, but a deeper sense of connection. Of remembering that leadership is not only about decisions and responsibilities, but also about presence. About seeing the people who live beneath your rule, not as subjects, but as individuals. As storytellers. As keepers of traditions older than any kingdom. You can almost feel it, can't you? That quiet sense of belonging, of being held by something larger than yourself? It doesn't come with fanfare or applause. It comes in small moments, like sitting beside someone who shares a story not because they have to, but because they want to. Tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps this journey reminds you that connection doesn't always require words. Sometimes, all it takes is a shared space, a quiet moment, and the willingness to simply be present. So as we continue walking together through this day, let yourself sink deeper into this world. Let yourself imagine the warmth of the sun on your skin, the soft hush of the river beside you, the gentle pull of peace settling over your body. Let yourself remember that even those who lead must also rest. Just like the Pharaoh. Just like you. The conversation continues for a while longer, but eventually, the woman turns back to her work, and the Pharaoh rises slowly to his feet. He thanks her with a quiet nod, then begins walking again, following the curve of the river as it stretches beyond the city and into the open land. Ahead, a group of farmers works in the fields, their bodies bent low as they tend to rows of barley and wheat. The soil is rich, dark, and damp from the early morning dew. Their hands move with practiced ease, pulling weeds, checking the growth of the crops, speaking occasionally in hushed tones that carry softly on the wind. He watches them for a moment, standing just far enough away not to disturb. Then, after a short pause, he walks forward and kneels beside one of them, not with ceremony, not with command, but with quiet humility. The farmer glances up, surprised but not alarmed. He recognizes something in the man's posture, not authority, not distance, but understanding. And so, he continues his work, offering a brief explanation of what he is doing, how the plants are growing, what the season might bring. The Pharaoh listens, asking questions not to test, but to learn. His voice is calm, his manner respectful. And when the farmer finishes speaking, he offers a quiet thank you before rising once more and continuing his walk. Behind him, the field remains, alive, growing, rooted in the same earth that has nourished this land for centuries. Ahead, the path winds onward, leading toward new encounters, new conversations, new moments of connection. And as the sun climbs higher into the sky, the Pharaoh walks on, feeling not separate from the people, but part of them. Just like the Pharaoh. Part 6, the final evening. The sun has begun its quiet descent behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the land and painting the sky in soft hues of lavender, gold, and deep blue. The air is cooler now, carrying with it the gentle scent of blooming evening jasmine and the distant sound of temple bells ringing softly in the distance. The city begins to settle into the rhythm of night, voices grow quieter, footsteps slow, and the day's energy shifts from movement to stillness. The pharaoh walks slowly back toward the palace, his steps unhurried, his breath steady. The light around him feels different now, not bright and sharp like the morning, but soft and warm, wrapping around everything like a familiar blanket pulled over tired shoulders. He carries with him the echoes of the day, the laughter of children, the scent of freshly baked bread, the quiet wisdom shared by those who live beneath his rule. There is no rush here. No need to return quickly, no demands waiting for him beyond the palace gates. He allows himself the luxury of slowness, of presence, of simply being. You can almost feel it too, can't you? That gentle pull of evening, that sense of time slowing down as the world prepares to rest. It's the kind of moment when thoughts begin to drift, when the body feels heavier, when the mind starts to soften in preparation for sleep. He passes through the outer courtyard, where the last rays of sunlight catch gently on the stone walls, illuminating the carved figures of gods and kings who have come before him. Their expressions are calm, their hands raised in gestures of offering or protection. They do not speak, but they seem to watch, not with judgment, not with expectation, but with quiet understanding. A breeze moves through the garden, rustling the leaves of tall sycamore fig trees and sending ripples across the surface of a small reflecting pool filled with lotus flowers. The petals glow softly in the fading light, their edges tinged with pink and white. Nearby, a bird calls out once, then falls silent again, leaving only the hush of the evening in its place. He pauses beside the water, watching as a fish breaks the surface, creating a small circle that spreads outward before disappearing entirely. There is something deeply calming about this, the way the world continues without pause, how even the smallest moments carry meaning if we take the time to notice them. Do you feel how easy it is to slip into this rhythm? How your breath seems to slow, how your thoughts begin to settle, like dust drifting lazily through a sunlit room. Because tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps this story reminds you that peace does not always arrive with fanfare or drama. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, like the hush before sleep, like the warmth of lamplight in a familiar space, like the simple act of standing beside a pond and letting the world breathe around you. He turns away from the water and continues walking, his path leading him toward the inner sanctum of the palace, not the throne room, not the halls of governance, but a smaller, quieter space where the evening rituals will begin. Servants move silently through the corridors, lighting oil lamps that cast soft pools of golden light along the stone floors. Curtains made of fine linen sway gently in the breeze, allowing moonlight to spill inside in soft waves. Inside the chamber, a low table has been prepared, covered with a tray of fresh dates soaked in honey, slices of flatbread still warm from the oven, and a cup filled with cool water mixed with a touch of pomegranate juice. It is not a feast, nor is it extravagant, only nourishment, offered with care. He sits down slowly, resting his hands lightly on his lap. The meal is eaten in silence, each bite taken deliberately, each sip savored as though reminding himself that even a ruler must nourish his body before tending to the needs of the people. There is no distraction here, no noise, no pressure. Just the quiet companionship of food and thought. As he finishes, a servant steps forward and offers a small clay jar filled with oil infused with rose petals and myrrh. He takes it with a quiet nod of thanks and removes the lid, allowing the scent to rise gently into the air. It's warm, sweet, grounding, the kind of fragrance that seems to wrap around the senses like a familiar memory. He dips 2 fingers into the oil and rubs it gently onto his arms, letting the coolness of the evening settle into his skin. There is no rush here. No urgency. Just the slow, careful movement of hands that know how to care, not just for others, but for oneself. And isn't there something comforting about that? About seeing someone in power allow themselves the simple luxury of peace. Because we often forget that leaders are people too, that they, too, need moments like this. Moments to sit quietly beneath a tree, to watch clouds drift across the sky, to let their minds wander without purpose or pressure. Tonight, as you listen to this story unfold, perhaps you, too, can find yourself in this moment, not as a stranger to history, but as someone who understands what it means to seek peace, to crave stillness, to want nothing more than to rest. And so, as we continue walking together through this evening, let yourself sink deeper into this world. Let yourself imagine the warmth of the oil on your skin, the soft hush of the palace settling into sleep, the gentle pull of dreams beginning to settle over your body. Let yourself remember that even in the midst of duty, there is room for stillness. Just like the Pharaoh. Just like you. After the ritual of oil and cleansing, he rises slowly and walks toward a small wooden chest resting near the foot of his bed. It's plain, unadorned, without gold or jewels, different from the treasures displayed in the throne hall, different from the golden masks and ceremonial weapons kept in the palace vaults. This box holds something else entirely. Something personal. Something private. Without hesitation, he opens it carefully and runs his fingers lightly over the folded pieces of cloth inside. These are not garments meant for ceremony, not robes woven with gold thread, just simple tunics worn during childhood, softened by years of use, faded by time. He lifts one gently, holding it up against the dim light. It's smaller than what he wears now, but the memory attached to it is vast. He remembers wearing it during festivals. Remembers running through the streets with other children, remembers how the fabric felt against his skin, how it smelled of firewood and incense and home. He smiles faintly at the memory, then folds it carefully once more and places it back inside the chest. Do you remember moments like that too? Small, quiet moments tucked away in the corners of your mind, waiting for the right time to return? Because tonight, as you lie there listening, perhaps this story reminds you of your own memories, of bedtime stories whispered into the dark, of hands that once held yours, of moments when you were seen, truly seen, without expectation or demand. He closes the chest and turns away, walking slowly toward the bed. The curtains are drawn slightly, allowing the soft light of the moon to spill inside. A single oil lamp burns nearby, casting gentle shadows along the painted walls. He lowers himself onto the cushioned mattress, resting his head against a soft pillow embroidered with patterns resembling flowing water. His breathing deepens, slows, becomes part of the rhythm of the room itself. Outside, the city sleeps quietly beneath the stars. Somewhere far away, a flute plays a gentle tune, notes floating through the air like whispers carried on the wind. And here, within these walls, the Pharaoh lets go of the day. His eyelids grow heavier. Not forced, not rushed, just naturally drawn downward by the weight of peace. And yet, he does not close them completely. Not yet. Instead, he watches as the flame in the oil lamp flickers gently, casting soft shadows along the painted walls. The figures there seem almost alive in this light, gods and goddesses frozen in eternal motion, their expressions calm, their presence watchful. He smiles faintly at them, not with reverence, not with fear, but with something quieter. Recognition. Acceptance. Perhaps even friendship. Because tonight, in this space, he is not bowing before them. He is simply sharing the moment with them. And isn't that what makes this place sacred? Not because of gold or offerings, not because of rituals or prayers, but because of the way it holds him, gently, patiently, without judgment. It's the same kind of holding that this story offers to you. Because tonight, as you listen, perhaps you, too, can allow yourself to rest, not just your body, but your mind. Perhaps you, too, can let go of the weight you carry, if only for a little while. Perhaps you, too, can find comfort in the quiet spaces of your own heart. So as we continue walking together through this night, let yourself sink deeper into this world. Let yourself imagine the warmth of the oil lamp, the soft hush of the evening, the gentle pull of dreams beginning to settle over your body. Let yourself remember that even those who lead must also rest. Just like the Pharaoh. Just like you. The flame in the oil lamp flickers gently, casting soft shadows along the painted walls of the chamber. The scent of myrrh and sandalwood still lingers in the air, carried by a thin ribbon of smoke rising from a small brazier in the corner. Outside, the city lies beneath a sky now filled with stars, not bright and sharp like lanterns, but soft and steady, like distant memories waiting to be recalled. Inside, everything feels slower, deeper, more peaceful. The Pharaoh remains lying on his side, one arm resting lightly beneath his head, the other draped across his waist. His breathing has settled into a slow, even rhythm, not forced, not exaggerated, just natural, like the tide moving gently against the shore. His eyes are closed now, but not tightly. Just enough to let go of the world outside, while still holding onto the quiet space within. You can almost feel it, can't you? That gentle pull of sleep beginning to settle over your body. Not sudden, not dramatic, just a slow drifting, like leaves falling one by one into still water. And as you listen, perhaps you, too, can allow yourself to rest. Because tonight is not about excitement or urgency. It's about release. About letting go of the day, of thoughts that no longer serve you, of tension that has been clinging to your shoulders without permission. It's about returning to something quieter, something softer, something deeply human. He shifts slightly beneath the fine linen sheets, adjusting his position just enough to find comfort. A light breeze moves through the open window, brushing gently against his skin, carrying with it the faintest whisper of the night beyond these walls. Somewhere far away, an owl calls out once, then falls silent again. The sound is low and steady, like the hush that comes before sleep. There is no need for movement now. No need to think, to plan, to worry. Just this, the warmth of the room, the coolness of the evening air, the steady beat of his own heart slowing down, matching the rhythm of the night. Do you feel how easy it is to slip into this state? How your thoughts begin to drift, how your body feels heavier, how the weight of the day begins to lift. Because sometimes, peace doesn't come with grand gestures or loud declarations. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, like the closing of a book at the end of a long story, like the last note of a lullaby fading into silence, like the moment just before dreams take hold. And so, as we continue walking together through this final part of the day, let yourself sink deeper into this world. Let yourself imagine the coolness of the stone floor beneath bare feet, the soft flicker of lamplight dancing across the walls, the gentle pull of sleep beginning to settle over your body. Let yourself remember that even those who lead must also rest. Just like the Pharaoh. Just like you. His mind begins to wander now, not toward duty or responsibility, not toward meetings or decisions, but toward memory. toward the kind of moments that don't live in scrolls or carved reliefs, but in the quiet corners of the heart. He remembers standing beside the Nile as a child, watching the boats drift slowly across the water, their sails catching the wind like wings. He remembers how his mother used to sing to him under the light of the oil lamp, her voice low and steady, her presence warm and grounding. He remembers the scent of bread baking in the morning, the way sunlight used to spill across the courtyard where he played with other children. These are not the stories that will be written in history books. They are not victories or battles, not laws passed or temples built. But they are real. And in this moment, they are everything. Because haven't we all had moments like this? Moments when the world around us fades away, and all that remains is the quiet space within us? When we are not required to perform, not expected to explain ourselves, not asked to do anything except simply be. That is what this story offers, not spectacle, not drama, not grand battles or sweeping declarations. It is about small, meaningful moments. About the spaces between the great events. About the quiet understanding that even those who lead must also rest, must also pause, must also listen. So as we continue walking through this night together, let yourself sink even deeper into this world. Let yourself imagine the coolness of the evening air, the soft hush of the palace settling into sleep, the gentle pull of dreams waiting just beyond reach. Let yourself remember that you, too, deserve peace. Just like the Pharaoh. Just like anyone who dares to breathe beneath the same sky. He exhales slowly, allowing his body to sink more fully into the mattress. His fingers relax, his breath deepens, his eyelids flutter slightly as the first hints of sleep begin to take hold. There is no fight here, no resistance, just surrender. Gentle. Willing. Natural. Outside, the city continues to sleep beneath the stars. The streets are empty now, the sounds of daily life replaced by the quiet hum of the night. Somewhere nearby, a cat moves silently through the shadows, its paws making no sound against the stone. A lone bird calls out once, then falls silent again. And here, within these walls, the Pharaoh lets go. His thoughts begin to blur at the edges, becoming less structured, less defined, like ink spreading gently through water. Memories mix with imagination, past blends with present, and time itself seems to stretch and soften. He sees himself standing beneath the temple columns again, feeling the cool shade wrap around him like a familiar embrace. He sees himself walking among the people, listening to their stories, sharing in their lives. He sees himself sitting beside the river, watching the ripples spread outward, disappearing into the vastness of the water. And then, slowly, those images begin to fade. Not because they are unimportant, but because something deeper is calling him now, the pull of rest, the hush of dreams, the quiet promise of another day waiting just beyond the veil of sleep. His breath becomes even slower now, deeper. His chest rises and falls with gentle ease, like the tide rolling in and out beneath the moonlight. His hands lie loosely at his sides, fingers slightly curled, palms open. Not tense. Not guarded. Just present. And as the last flickering flame of the oil lamp dances softly in the quiet room, the Pharaoh slips gently into sleep. Not with fanfare. Not with ceremony. Not with demands or expectations. But simply. Peacefully. Completely. And as you lie there listening, perhaps you, too, can feel that same pull, the gentle invitation to let go, to rest, to allow yourself the luxury of stillness. Because tonight, as the world outside grows quieter and the night settles deeper around you, you are safe here. you are held. You are welcome. And if you choose to close your eyes now, if you choose to let your thoughts drift away like leaves on the wind, that is okay. Because this story was never meant to keep you awake. It was meant to guide you gently into sleep. To remind you that even the most powerful among us must rest. To help you remember that you, too, deserve peace. And now, as the night settles fully around us, we come to the end of this quiet journey through time. You've walked beside the Pharaoh from the first light of morning to the hush of evening. You've seen his world not through battles or betrayals, but through moments of stillness, ritual, and connection. You've stood beside him in the silence of the temple, shared in the rhythm of his day, and witnessed the private corners of a life lived at the very top of the world, alone. But tonight, you were never truly alone. Because even in history, even across centuries, there is a presence that remains, not one of power or command, but of understanding, of companionship, of gentle guidance. As you lie there now, perhaps your body feels heavier, your breaths longer, your thoughts drifting like leaves falling into still water. And if sleep has already begun to pull you under, then may it be deep and peaceful. May your mind rest without worry, may your heart feel calm, and may your dreams carry you gently into the arms of peace. If you're still listening, take one more moment with me, just a quiet pause, a soft breath, a final thought before we let go of this story for the night. Because sometimes, endings are not about closure, but about continuation. About carrying something forward, not in your hands, but in your spirit. Tonight, you carried a piece of ancient Egypt with you. Not its monuments, not its myths, but its stillness. Its rhythm. Its quiet humanity. And isn't that what makes history beautiful? Not the wars it remembers, not the names it carves into stone, but the way it reminds us, again and again, that no matter how much time passes, people remain the same. We still wake in the morning. We still breathe in the air. We still long for peace, for meaning, for a place where we belong. So as you close your eyes now, know that you have been heard. That you have been held. That you have been seen, not by the world outside, but by the part of yourself that listens quietly, that rests deeply, that finds comfort in stories whispered into the dark. And if you ever need to return here, to this space, to this peace, you can. Because this channel, this moment, this lullaby of history will always be waiting for you, like a warm bed beneath a quiet sky. So wherever you are right now, whether you're lying beneath a blanket in a room filled with moonlight, or tucked safely beneath layers of warmth in a house still and silent, I want to thank you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. Thank you for allowing my voice to walk beside yours for a little while. Thank you for trusting this story enough to let it guide you towards sleep. If you enjoyed this journey, please do consider liking this video and subscribing to Bedtime Historia, so we can meet again on another night when you need a gentle escape. And if you feel comfortable doing so, leave a comment telling me where you are right now, and what time it is in your part of the world. It's amazing how many of us are listening at the same time, even though we may be oceans apart. But for now, I'll leave you with just one last thing, a final whisper, a closing blessing, a quiet wish for your night ahead. May your sleep be deep. May your dreams be kind. And may you always find your way back to peace. Good night.